Dear people watching and listening, Assalamu alaikum. Kindly like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please support my channel by contributing to my Patreon account so that I can continue making the audiobook series. This book tells in detail about the Muslim conquest of Spain under the Umayyad Caliphate from 711 AD to 718 AD. The conquest is also known as the Muslim conquest of the Iberian Peninsula or the Umayyad conquest of the Visigothic kingdom. This conquest destroyed the Visigothic kingdom and established the Umayyad wilaya of Al-Andalus. It also resulted in the expansion of the Umayyad Caliphate and the Muslim rule into Europe. Start of Chapter 17. Judgment at Damascus. Tariq and Mughis got to Damascus ahead of Musa. Sometime before its arrival at the Beria, they left the column and rode on ahead. No sooner had they arrived at Damascus than they went to see the ruler of the Muslim world and make their report. Caliphalwaleed was well disposed towards both of them. Mughis was a childhood friend and trusted companion whose sparkling wit and lively humor he always enjoyed. As for Tariq, the Caliph had heard so much about him, and not only from Maurice, that he was anxious to meet the renowned soldier and conqueror of Spain. The Caliph was glad to welcome the two generals. He received them with joy and did them honor. Tariq gave the Caliph an account of his deeds in Spain, the victories of the Muslims, the defeats of the infidels, the services rendered by him and the warriors of Islam. He told the Caliph about the spoils gained by the conquerors and the famed table of Solomon, how it came into his hands and how Musa took it away, and now claimed it as one of his own acquisitions. He said nothing about the leg of the table which he had removed, and which was even now secreted in his baggage. To prove the veracity of what he stated, Tariq asked that the testimony of the Muslim soldiers be taken regarding his achievements in Africa and Spain. From them the Caliph could ascertain the truth of his words. Nay, he went on, even of our enemies, the Christians, he might safely inquire if they have ever found me cowardly, cruel, or covetous. The Caliph was highly pleased with the Berber general. He assured him that he was well aware of events in Spain, that he was convinced of the uprightness of character, good conduct and ample courage of his general, and abundantly satisfied with the services rendered by him. Maurice also gave an account of the events in Spain, more or less confirming what Tariq had said. Apart from the story of the table, he also brought up the matter of the barbarian lord of Cordoba, the only prince of the royal blood to fall into Muslim hands. He narrated the story of how he had captured the prince and how Musa snatched him away and killed him. Maurice put his eloquence into full play. Furthermore, he went on to accuse Musa of embezzlement, picking out incidents relating to the handling of spoils which reflected adversely on Musa. He has appropriated a diamond of such great value, Maurice added, that kings have not possessed the likes of it since the conquest of Persia. The two veterans of Spain also went and saw the heir apparent Suleiman, brother of Caliph al-Walid. They knew, as did everybody else in Syria, that the Caliph was dying, and before long the world of Islam would have Suleiman as its new ruler. Suleiman himself was counting the days till that happened. So Tariq and Mughis thought it wise to see Suleiman, in case al-Walid did not live long enough to receive Musa, and it fell to his brother's lot to do so. They told Suleiman what they had told the Caliph. The heir apparent believed every word of what they said, having heard from his messenger how Musa had rejected his call to delay his arrival in Damascus. Suleiman was boiling with rage, impatient to get his hands on Musa. Everything that he heard against Musa was like music to his ears. Meanwhile, Musa was marching to the capital of Syria. He was approaching Damascus like a returning hero, laden with spoils and glory, and conqueror of new lands and new peoples. He was coming with the expectation of a tumultuous welcome from an adoring public and an honorable reception from a grateful monarch. He would dazzle the Caliph with the riches he had brought from Africa and Spain, the most prized of which, and which Musa claimed as his own conquest, was the Table of Solomon. He had already sent the Caliph a written account of his victories and the part he himself had played in them. He had summed up the account with the words, "These are not conquests. These are like the meeting of nations on the day of judgment." There is a discrepancy in history with regard to who was Caliph at the time of Musa's arrival at Damascus. According to some accounts, it was al-Walid. According to others, Suleiman. Most historians give both as possible versions, and most historians favor the former. That is, Caliph al-Walid was alive when Musa arrived at the capital. This has to be correct because Musa got to Damascus on January 16, 715, Jamadiul Awwal 596 Hijri, while al-Walid did not die till February 23. The Caliph was alive and well enough to receive his commander-in-chief in the west, though he was not too well. Musa made an impressive entry. He paid his respects to the ailing Caliph and presented his gifts, treasures of gold and silver and pearls and precious stones, curious objects never before seen in the East, noble captives of the Berber and the Gothic race, lords and ladies with gold diadems on their heads and gold girdles around their waists, young virgins of matchless beauty, and last, though by no means least, the Table of Solomon. The Caliph kept the proceedings at a formal level. He was not feeling very well, and it appears that nothing more happened at his first meeting. The Caliph took no action in the matter of the charges levelled against Musa by Tariq and Maurice. He was probably too ill to do anything more than accept graciously the trophies of the West. He did order, however, that the Table of Solomon be broken up and all its precious metals and gems be put in the treasury, though this was not done till somewhat later, till after his death. Thus a few weeks passed with the Caliph's condition deteriorating, the Caliph's brother waiting impatiently in the wings and Musa wondering what the future had in store for him, if anything. He would have been lucky if the future had nothing in store for him. Then on Saturday, February 23, 715, Jamadiul Akhir 1396 Hijri, Caliph al-Walid died. On the same day, Suleiman became Caliph and commander of the faithful. Suleiman's only claim to the caliphal throne was that he was born to the right father, Caliph Abdul Malik. He had no other qualifications for the job. He was a very handsome man, extremely vain and known as a gourmet who could consume enormous quantities of food. In his mid-30s, he was young enough to be Musa's grandson and had never fought a battle in his life. But that did not prevent him from doing what he did to Musa. His 3-year reign was to start on a vicious note. Suleiman had already made up his mind to punish and humiliate Musa for refusing to delay his journey to Damascus. Musa's stature as a distinguished general and a governor of high standing, in fact as possibly the greatest general of his time, did not count with the new caliph. The words of Tariq and Maurice had fanned the flames of his anger, and as if that were not enough, he was approached by a man named Isa bin Abdullah at-Tawil, the Tall, who had served in Spain and been the officer in charge of the spoils of war. This man said that Musa had not sent to Damascus the entire fifth of the spoils which was the share of the state, but had kept part of it for himself. Suleiman now had all the evidence that he needed. He ordered a trial of Musa bin Nusayr, with himself as judge, for offences related to the disposal of spoils of war acquired in Spain. The trial was duly arranged. Musa was called up as the accused, with witnesses present to give evidence against him. The main item in the charges was the Table of Solomon, which was also brought before the court. As everyone could see, one of its forelegs was different and not of the same workmanship as the other three. The Caliph began, "Tariq claims that it was he and not you who found the table." "Nay," Musa replied calmly, "he has never seen it except with me." Now Tariq entered the proceedings. "Let the commander of the faithful ask him about the missing leg." The commander of the faithful asked him about the missing leg, and Musa replied, "This is how I found it. I had another leg made to replace the missing one." Thereupon Tariq reached into the folds of his robes and pulled out the missing leg, which was exactly the same as the three original legs of the table. He placed it before the Caliph. All present now knew the truth about the table of Solomon. Musa stood guilty. He had no more to say. Moreover, because he had been found guilty on this charge, the Caliph and others present assumed that all the other charges brought against him must also be true. Whether any more charges were actually taken up and acknowledged or disputed is not recorded in the account of these proceedings. Suleiman turned viciously upon Musa. He gave him a terrible tongue-lashing, abused him severely, brutally. Musa made an attempt at putting up a defense. If the table were not his, at least other conquests were. He had won victories which ranked as some of the greatest in the 96-year history of Islam. These could not be ignored, but Musa's arguments were of no avail. His pleading fell on deaf ears. "By Allah," swore the Caliph, "I shall destroy your works and debase you in rank." This was more than the old conqueror could take. He retorted defiantly, "As for what you say about destroying my works and debasing me in rank, these matters are in the hands of Allah and not in yours. To him I turn for help against you." Musa had yet to discover how mean, how vindictive Caliph Suleiman could be. He would soon learn. As his first punishment, he was made to stand in the burning sun in the middle of a hot day, without water, without respite or support of any kind. It was not easy. Musa was an old man, 74, 76 in lunar years. He was a tall, big, heavily built man, and suffered from asthma. He refused to ask for help or mercy. He stood it for as long as he could, then he fell unconscious to the ground and had to be carried away. If anyone present wondered that this proud but pathetic white-haired suffering figure was one of the greatest conquerors of Islam, he did not say so. Musa was dismissed from all his offices, civil and military, and all his possessions were taken away by command of the Caliph. Suleiman also ordered that the fallen general be given in the charge of an Arab officer, who would take him to Africa and leave him there as an exile. Musa appealed against this punishment to the Caliph's young son Ayub, who felt sorry for the old soldier and interceded on his behalf with his father. The order of banishment was cancelled. This was just as well because it was a foolish order. Musa in Africa could be much more dangerous for the Umayyad Caliphate than a Musa kept under strict surveillance in Syria, the home of the Umayyads. After this, Suleiman imposed on Musa a fine of 200,000 dinars, gold pieces. Musa only had 100,000, and that was taken from him and put in the treasury. He could find no way of paying the rest, so the Caliph had him delivered to an Arab chief, Yazid bin al-Muhallib, who was a close friend and confidant of the Caliph, with instructions to watch over him and, if possible, cut the balance of the fine out of him. Mercifully, this Yazid was also an old friend of Musa. 25 years earlier, when both were serving in Iraq, Musa had saved Yazid's life when then governor of Basra wished to kill him. Yazid remembered. He was kind to Musa. For the balance of the fine he turned to Musa's tribe in Iraq, the Lakhm, and so strong was tribal loyalty among the Arabs that the members of the tribe made a contribution and the tribe paid the balance of the fine. One account says that Yazid could only collect 90,000 dinars, but it is more likely that the entire remaining 100,000 was received from the tribe of Lakham. The full fine imposed by the Caliph on Musa was paid. Musa continued to live with Yazid bin al-Muhallib. It was a kind of a house arrest. Musa knew, as did everyone else, that the Caliph had thought to have him executed and that the possibility still existed. Musa possessed nothing now. Everything that he had, and there had been so much of it, had been taken away from him. He was virtually a pauper, living as a guest in the house of Yazid. Fortunately for Musa, Yazid was a decent man and did whatever could be done to alleviate the suffering of the aged general. Musa was no longer the man he used to be. He was turning into a pathetic old figure. If this breaking of a once proud and honorable spirit gave the Caliph satisfaction, it did him little honor. Musa was not defiant any more. He no longer expected to be rewarded for services rendered. He only asked for peace and wished life would not be so unkind, not at this age. He turned to Yazid for help. Could he intercede with the Caliph on his behalf and ask for a letter? Yazid looked at Musa with some amusement. Then he said, I wish to ask you something, so pay attention to me. Ask what you wish, replied Musa. Yazid began. I was always hearing people talk about you, saying how you were the wisest of men and the most knowledgeable in the stratagems of war, as well as the ways of politics. So tell me, how is it that you let yourself into the hands of this man after you had conquered Andalus and put a stormy sea between yourself and these people? He did not wait for a reply but continued. You had found security after desire and difficulty. You had earned for yourself a land which you yourself had conquered. You ruled over men who knew nothing about you except what they saw of your virtues and your faults. You had come to possess wealth and treasures and troops and castles so strong that if you had put up even a show of resistance, you would not have found yourself with your neck in the hands of a man who feels no pity for you. Then you knew that Suleiman was heir apparent and would become caliph after his brother, that his brother was about to die. There was no doubt about this, and yet you opposed him and brought about your own ruin, earning the scorn not only of your master but also of your slave, meaning Suleiman and Tariq. This man will not easily be persuaded to let you off, but we will try. Musa remained silent for a few moments. The tears welled up in his eyes. Then he said, This is no time for reproaches. You must have heard the saying, when the opportunity is there, the eye is closed. I did not intend to reproach you, Yazid explained, nor did I wish to make you cry. I only wished to clear my own mind and know where you stood. Musa accepted this but added, Have you seen the wild pigeon? It can see water underground at a great distance, and yet gets not in a snare right before its eyes. Yazid spoke with Suleiman about Musa. After much persuasion the Caliph relented, though only a little. He would not ease the burden of the fine imposed on Musa or return his confiscated property, but he would be allowed to live free and secure. He would not be beheaded. In fact, he gave Musa's life to Yazid as a gift. I give you his blood, said the Caliph grandly, but beyond that I shall not lighten his punishment. Musa bin End of chapter 17.